if Google is choosing a snippet from your article to feature in the AI overview, while, yes, it might, and it probably will likely result in fewer visits to your website, it means you're doing your job. At the end of the day, like that, it's showing that your content is being recognized as the most helpful, the most impactful. And so that at the end of the day shows that, you are connecting with your audience in the ways that you should be and answering their questions and solving their needs. So it's kind of, it's a balancing act. Take the good with the bad.
Hello, fellow marketers and listeners. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Call to Action. I'm Janet Mesh, CEO of Aimtel and host of the show, and very excited to have two special guests with us today, my co-host Tucker and our senior content manager, Emily DeRogers of Aimtel. So I'll introduce them in a few moments, but just real quick to remind you what Call to Action is. So in each episode, we analyze and discuss the latest trends and research in B2B marketing. Then we conclude every episode with one call to action. That means you're going to get ideas for tactics to use in your company's marketing. And Aimtel, we are an integrated marketing agency. We specialize in building marketing processes and strategies for companies, and then we launch their first marketing campaigns and programs. So, we always like to show a little bit of how the sausage is made, as I like to say, in each episode. So you get a little bit of that. But for today's episode that we have lined up for you is all about the current and future state of content marketing and SEO. Definitely a very spicy topic in the industry in 2024. So I'm really excited to dive into it. But as I mentioned, let's kick off with some brief introductions. Do you want to kick us off? Want to start first, Tucker?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Tucker Delaney-Wynn, Growth Marketing Lead at Aimtel, working on high-level marketing strategies all the way down to nitty-gritty campaigns and reporting for HubSpot, LinkedIn, Google, everything in between. So happy to be here as always with you, Janet, and Emily. Excited to chat with you as well. Love to pass it over to you.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Emily. I'm actually a fellow New Englander like Janet and Tucker, but I'm now based in Colorado. And yeah, as Tucker said, I'm the senior content manager at Aimtel. I've been with the team for a number of years now. And I've worked on a number of different client accounts ranging from B2B product software to the health and wellness industry to emerging tech solutions. So kind of have seen it all, and I focus on content strategy, social media, basically anything to do with words is what I like to say. And yeah, I'm just really excited to be here and talk about content and SEO.
Excellent. Thanks, Tiger. Thanks, Emily. Excited to chat with you both, our fellow New Englanders. We'll see if our Boston accents come on at any point of the episode. So as I mentioned, we're going to get into the weeds on how content marketing and SEO are evolving, especially with ChatGPT generative AI entering the chat, really kind of taking the industry by storm over the past couple of years. So you'll learn and get our hot takes on the biggest disruptors to SEO performance. Hint, it's generative AI. Types of content you should prioritize, especially we want to talk a lot about video. We create a lot of video content at Aimtel and for our clients and manage a lot of YouTube channels for clients. So definitely want to share a little bit of our expertise around that and how you can start to incorporate video into your marketing programs in the next year. As well as definitely, I think we need to take, and we'll have to talk about Tucker and Emily, of creating channel-specific content, especially in the age of zero-click tactics. And as I mentioned, we'll provide a couple of examples just to contextualize a lot of what we're talking about and the research and learnings that we've had and just others in the industry are seeing as well. So a lot of ground to cover, but I love to always just get a little personal with our guests. I feel like Tucker and I are always sharing little tidbits about ourselves. So I wanted to kick it off since you're, maybe we could start with you, Emily, since this is your first time on the show, one of our special guests. And since all of our background, fun fact, myself, Tucker, and Emily, we all started our careers in marketing as copywriters. So my question is, what's the weirdest or most random company or brand or like product you've ever done? Maybe not weird, but maybe something random. People would be surprised. Like we work in B2B. I feel like we work with a lot of tech companies, but is there any one that jumps out to you that you're like, oh yeah, that was kind of an interesting and somewhat difficult one to write for in your career as a copywriter?
Yeah, such a fun question. I feel like there's so many things I could say, but one that pops into my mind is I, many years ago, wrote copy for, it was like a smart home feature where it was a built-in intercom in your home. So like you could be sitting in your living room and you could press a button and you could talk to someone like a floor or two above you and communicate with them via an intercom, which I guess is a thing in like really big houses, but I had never heard of it before.
So yeah, I can't find my cell phone, so I'm gonna use the intercom.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was my first kind of experience writing copy for a smart home, which felt really random, but it was fun. What about yours, Tucker? Do you have one that comes to mind?
Oh, that's so funny, Emily, because you just jogged my memory back in the 90s, I think before cell phones. We did have an intercom because we had
Did you?
Yeah,
in your house?
Kitchen, and we were up in me and my brothers on the third floor, so that my mom would be like, dinner, you'd come on
Oh
down.
my gosh. Maybe I'm late to the game. That's so funny.
Yeah.
Well, they made a comeback. I feel like that was only a few years ago. You said they made a comeback, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
They're back. Yeah. Wow.
Wow.
Epic. Well, as you both know, I have a background in doing marketing for Broadway theater before I switched to B2B. But that also kind of included off Broadway and sometimes off Broadway. So there was some very interesting theatrical things that I did marketing for. One of them was a dinner theater show. I think it was you went to the show, you got a meal, and then you also got to watch Shakespeare, which I think was awesome. But I don't actually know that I went to the show. But I did marketing for that, and I remember writing a tagline that, okay, you're going to the show, you're eating a meal, and you're getting to watch some meaty Shakespeare. So my tagline was, "Great theater must be consumed." And I was pretty proud of that back in the day. So
you should be proud of that.
Yeah, claim to fame right there.
Interesting experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I try to keep.
I'm curious what's on the cutting room floor from that.
Probably a lot of worse puns. Yeah. What about you, Janet? Most random kind of company you ever did copywriting for?
Okay, they're definitely a good amount. So I worked at a couple of agencies before starting Aimtel. Building up my career, getting a ton of experience. And one of the agencies I worked with, there were a lot of like B2C companies that we worked with. So, business to consumer. And the one that stands out to me, and I was like going in my kind of archives of my mind, and I was like, oh, that's pretty hilarious. It was actually a Harley Davidson store in Daytona, Florida. And like I literally wrote ad copy for like Google ads and like billboards. Like we created billboards with like to get people to like come to the Harley store. And they also did like, if you know, like, have you ever heard of like Bike Week? It's like huge. It's like one of the biggest events ever in Daytona. And so we like helped create the ads and like the billboards and the promotion for our client to get people to like come by their store on their way to like Bike Week. So that was pretty wild. It's pretty amazing when you start to like really understand like niche audiences. And I wouldn't even actually say like motorcycle like groups are niche. They're pretty big. But at the same time, back then for me, I was like, I didn't even know this existed. I'm from Boston, but it was pretty wild.
Yeah, it's always so fun just getting to know a slice of life or an audience that you like never really had much connection with. And be like, all right, let me get inside your head. So yeah, Biker Week.
Yeah. Yeah, which we'll talk a little bit. I think that's definitely a lot of what kind of SEO at the core of, so really just trying to understand your audience and what they're interested in. So from our days of writing home to Broadway to biker group copywriting and trying to get people to be interested. I would say in our career, we definitely have seen content SEO go through some major transformations, even just in the past couple of years. the goal remains the same as kind of what I was just explaining, is like, regardless of that, this is what we'll get into. People are, you need to create content and information that serves that specific audience. I think at the end of the day, that hasn't changed. But as I mentioned, let's start talking about how AI really has kind of, transformed just in a fairly short amount of time. I think I want to put some stuff into perspective that like generative AI was like released to the public just in November 2022. So the time of this recording, it's November 2024. So I'll kind of share this first research just to kind of give us a starting point, and then Emily and Tucker, I'm just let you guys jump in, share your perspectives on kind of where we've been, where we're going. But this here is a study by SAS in September 2024, so pretty recently, conducted by Coleman Parkes Research. And it says here is the extent to which marketing executives worldwide are using generative AI for marketing activities. And they think looks like they did this probably started in July 2024, released in September. But what's very fascinating, the top line here is that 10% of people are using Gen AI for marketing and have fully implemented. So only 10% of people that they surveyed here are actually like, that's pretty small, honestly. And then the next one is 65% are using Gen AI for marketing, but haven't yet fully implemented it. Maybe they're like, testing, experimenting. I think we can definitely identify with that in our clients. And then the kind of the following two here are not yet using it or not using it at all, but they intend to in the next like year to 2 years. And that makes up 25% of people surveyed. So I think this is fascinating because, you always hear and you see online on LinkedIn, everywhere you go, it's all about AI. Any conference you go to, every session's about AI. And it's easy to feel really behind and like overwhelmed by all these like constant changes. I think that's the point of why we created Call to Action, the show to like kind of help share this information, give insights, make it a little bit easier to take some action on something. We don't feel like you have to boil the ocean. But we still think this is important because it's been 2 years, and I think some people may feel behind, but in reality, you're not. I think we still don't know all the things we need to know. Like, we're not coming on here and saying that we're like experts in generative AI, but what we are doing is having opinion, learning, understanding, trying to be transparent about the ways that this is having an impact, what trends we're seeing. And I think that's really important for marketers and for everyone just to be like, okay, what are you seeing? What's going on? How are you using this? So curious, I know that, industry leaders are doing a lot of this research and trying to make it more visible. And there was this recent report by Search Engine Journal. So curious, Emily, if you want to kind of talk through this, because there was a little bit of a deeper, we're going to go down the rabbit hole like immediately. Let's get into it.
Yeah. So kind of coming off of the research that you just showed, Janet, Search Engine Journal surveyed marketers on what they believe will be the biggest disruptors to SEO performance in the next few years. And kind of unsurprisingly, the top response was generative AI in search, or SGE, as they are shortening it here, which we'll dive into a little bit more in a minute. That took the #1 spot, followed by AI generated content. So, it's clear, like, this shows that AI's role in search and in content marketing is really on everybody's radar. And it really is starting to kind of like reshape the way that we think about our SEO strategies and content moving forward. So yeah, we're going to dive into kind of, how marketers can start to approach their content strategies a little bit differently, and, maybe diversify your content a little bit more throughout this episode. But yeah, I just thought this was super interesting that this was kind of predicted, about a year ago, and now it's coming to the forefront where it actually is really impacting performance. So yeah.
Emily, one thing off the bat, can you just help us like define our terms a little bit? So like, these top two of generative AI and search versus AI generated content. Explain to us what's the difference between those two?
Yeah, good call. I know. I feel like there's so many acronyms used in marketing. So let's break it down. So, so SGE, or Search Generative Experience, which is referred to in this chart here, and the AI overview, which you might have seen just doing your own Google searches recently, are basically iterations of the same feature in Google. So SGE, or Search Generative Experience, was sort of the first rendition, I guess, of AI being used in search. And earlier on this year, like mid 2024, Google actually branded this feature where, when you type something into Google, it'll show you kind of like an AI generated snippet. They branded this feature into being called AI Overview, which I think personally is a much better, more straightforward way to explain what it's doing.
Or AIO is like the acronym.
Yeah, AIO, exactly. And so basically what all this means is Google is using AI to scan all of kind of like the highest ranking articles and pull snippets from those articles to compile kind of like a summary for people who are searching for different search terms, which kind of goes into the whole zero-click content, which we'll touch on a little bit later as well. And then, in terms of AI generated content, I feel like ChatGPT is kind of like the first thing that comes to mind for this one. It's basically content that is generated with either fully by or with the help of AI, using machine learning models. And to just kind of like keep it simple, this can mean that, an AI tool like ChatGPT can draft articles for you, product descriptions, summaries, all sorts of different things. And this can kind of help you get an initial idea off the ground, but it shouldn't be used to just completely write your content for you. It should still be edited with a human touch. But those are kind of the main differences between AI generated content and AI overviews, or SGE. But for the purpose of this presentation, we're going to refer to it as AI overviews, or AIO. When we're talking about AI used in search.
Yeah, thanks, Emily. That's helpful to understand. Yeah, I think that's also just like, it's helpful to hear because it's just, everything's changed so rapidly and quickly, and it's a lot to keep up with, honestly.
Yes.
So what's fascinating, I was doing some further research, and I was just scrolling through LinkedIn, of course, and I came across this other report by Kevin Indig. I don't know if I pronounced your name correctly, but anyways, Kevin, shout out to you for doing some research. He shared it on Search Engine Journal, and I think what we'll show and talk about next is that with the AI overviews, what we're seeing is that like there's less clicks going to a website page, is really like when you see an AI overview, it's pretty much giving you the answer. And like, that's kind of the point, making it so easy for someone if like they're searching in Google, pretty much like asking the question and they get the answer right away. And then if they wanted to click through, they could. But what's happening in a lot of the conversation in the industry has been like, you're not going to see that. You're going to start to see like drops in traffic to your own website and even like other channels. So, however, in this research that they did, the top domains that like AI overviews pull from were, so this is what I'm talking about. This is they did a large analysis of AI overviews. It was like 44 gigabytes of data, which is insane. Worked with a company called Surfer to like pull all this together. A little bit difficult to see, but these like kind of spikes here in the beginning of the chart of the top cited domains in AI overviews was YouTube and LinkedIn, which is fascinating. And then followed by like a handful of health and like medical sites. Facebook's on here, Amazon, Wikipedia is also in here. So when I saw this, I was like, interesting. This is like I posted this on LinkedIn as well. And I'm very fascinated by this because if anything, I think it's very much showing that if you're going to invest in marketing channels, then like in 2025, especially like YouTube and LinkedIn better be at the top of the list, because that's like the content that's being like cited. This is like another kind of like look at kind of the data here. So as I was mentioning, like YouTube, Wikipedia, YouTube again, LinkedIn, Google, what this is telling us is like it's being cited, but it's not necessarily like a guarantee that someone's going to like click through. I think also what we're seeing is like it's getting harder and harder for your content to rank organically, to show up in these AI overviews. Like there's a good amount of competition, but the signals are still there that if you're creating content in the right websites and channels, then you have more of an opportunity to, be at that in the AI overview or be cited. So I think let's like unpack this a little bit more, Tucker and Emily, because there's a lot here. I think we're all trying to still figure out like what exactly this means, how you pivot, but curious just to kind of get your take on this a little bit further.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like maybe let's take a look at a search query and actually.
Right. We're talking about AI overviews and everyone's like,
yeah,
not everyone knows what we're actually talking about.
Totally. Yeah. So yeah, I feel like taking a look at an actual search query and showing, the two different ways that audience groups might, engage with an AI overview versus click into your site might help paint, a clearer picture of what might be impacting your site traffic. So if we're looking at this example, what is CIEM, and kind of analyze it from two different perspectives. And like I was saying, how your audience might be interacting with AI overviews. So you can see like, what is CIEM? That's a pretty broad search term, right? So this, the AI overview that you see here, it says purpose, how it works, benefits, features. This AI overview, for someone who maybe they're a cloud security developer who's just trying to understand the basics of what CIEM is, what it even stands for, just get like a basic definition about what it is. This might be enough. Like this AI overview might serve, the purpose of their search, and maybe they don't need to click into one of these, articles that's listed on the right here. And this is kind of the reality that we're living in now is, marketers will lose traffic to their websites for these simple search terms that maybe in the past would be big, reasons why they were getting a lot of organic search traffic to their websites. But I think another way to think about it is, let's say you take someone in a similar role or the same role, a cloud security developer who maybe just started a job at a cloud security company. So something like CIEM would be pretty important for them to have a more in-depth understanding of. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like this AI overview doesn't necessarily provide a super in-depth, complex answer to where if you're really needing to like get into the nitty-gritty details about CIEM, I still feel like they would need to click into one of these articles to do like additional research and really become an expert on that subject. So you can kind of see like, depending on the level of knowledge and like how in depth, your audience needs to go on a certain subject might dictate whether or not you get their traffic to your website. Yeah. So yeah, it is kind of, a harsh reality of how AI is impacting search. But we are going to go into, in a little while, how you can kind of reshape parts of your content strategy to make sure that you can still, get that organic search traffic, and also ways that, you can use other channels to, boost your brand awareness and get that thought leadership and all of the things that you might have been hoping for that, organic search on Google would be doing. So
yeah. What your take on this, Tucker, is.
Yeah, you're not wrong at all, Emily. No need to on. Well, and I love what you said, Emily.
Come at us. Come at us.
Yeah. I think that you took two perspectives that I love. The simple version, where someone's going to look at this to literally know what is CIEM, what does it stand for? Cloud Infrastructure Entitlement Management. Great. But a lot of people, we work in B2B, these topics are complex. A lot of people are going to want to dig in deeper. You're not going to get examples, you're not going to get diagrams, you're not going to get like explain it to me like I'm 5 kind of thing here. So
I feel like this is like almost they explain it to me like I'm 5 version, right? It's like the V1 of that, but then it's like but that's only going to take you so far.
Yeah, you're not going to get a lot of context. For me, when I dive into these kind of terms, which is almost every day, I need to be like, show me examples, show me more, so I think there's still going to be a lot of people who do need to click into topics like this. But I think you've acknowledged a really important reality, Emily, is that for the very simple answers, simple queries, people are just going to get it from the AIO and not click in. But I think the other half of that is, to borrow a phrase that you said, Emily, before the call, the AIO can be a great gateway for the people who want to do deeper research, who really do want to discover and get a full understanding of these topics. So what I think this means, what this portends for marketers, is for them to start asking themselves, what are those complex topics related to my product or related to my services that buyers are going to actually click in on? Not going to get traffic for that simple search query anymore, but what are those more complex, richer topics that I want to make sure I'm creating content for, so that, I can still get traffic and I can show up in these AIOs, so that we're still having a presence there.
Totally.
I think having that inform your content strategy is really critical.
Yeah. And I feel like that should be the goal no matter what, right? Is to be creating helpful, in-depth, informational content that really, serves, like, maybe it's a niche purpose, but it really helps answer your audience's questions. I feel like that should kind of be like the baseline no matter what when you're creating content. So
yeah, that one trend hasn't changed over the years. Like, there's been a lot of change, but that's the one thing that hasn't changed and shouldn't change.
Right.
Yeah, totally. And I feel like, when you're thinking about an AI overview, you can kind of think of it the same way you might approach like a featured snippet. Because if you think about it, a featured snippet, which is, Google before AI, just pulling a snippet out from probably the top ranking article and just showing it up front in the search. You can kind of use a similar mindset here, where if Google is choosing a snippet from your article to feature in the AI overview, while, yes, it might, and it probably will likely result in fewer visits to your website, it means you're doing your job. At the end of the day, like that, it's showing that your content is being recognized as the most helpful, the most impactful. And so that, at the end of the day, shows that, you are connecting with your audience in the ways that you should be, and answering their questions and solving their needs. So it's kind of, it's a balancing act. You take the good with the bad.
Great analogy.
Yeah. Interesting. I think my mind just keeps going back to what I shared before, is like, even though, which I agree with, you guys are like, got to create the helpful content, what people are looking for, that intent. But we can't ignore the fact that it's like Google's just not driving as much traffic to websites. They're not ranking like the mom and pops of the world anymore. Unfortunately, like it's still just really difficult. Like I feel like even for Aimtel, like we used to rank for like really like difficult keywords, and we see that reduction. But when we invest in like channels like LinkedIn and YouTube, that's where we're starting to see like a lot of performance. So I think what's interesting when what I shared before is that like there's many pieces to this puzzle, and one is like, where are you creating that content? I think obviously you always want to be on your own website. It's like it's your company's home. You want people to be aware of your brand, come and explore, but really they're going to find you first on other channels. So let's focus on kind of our top channel, which is definitely YouTube. And so we've been advocating and saying this for years. We've been creating like YouTube content, video series, and content for clients for years, and really like using that as like the core of a client's like SEO strategy. So as I shared earlier, YouTube is one of the top domains that's being like cited in AI overviews and just traffic overall. And what's actually like another kind of like, just to zoom out for a moment again, this research study here, it's from Nielsen. They shared it. It's actually from September 2024 or July, and they released it in September again. But it's saying here, share of time spent with TV in the US by media company. YouTube's at the top. It's like above Walt Disney. It goes YouTube, Walt Disney, NBC, Netflix, Fox, Paramount, Warner Brothers, Amazon, AMC at the bottom, Hallmark. This is like fascinating to me, because I think a lot of people, are maybe still a little cold on YouTube, or not saying, maybe it's still very much like for niche audiences, but very much I think that we're just seeing time and time again, and it just every year just proves the point, is like that's a channel to invest in. It is technically the second largest search engine. YouTube is owned by Google, right? So there are a lot of reasons why video is essential to our marketing strategies. I think one thing too, and we talk a lot about this in episode 3 of Call to Action. So we dive in much deeper, myself, Tucker, and Dylan on our team, of why you should be investing in creating video. I think one thing is like video is very multifaceted. So you can take that content, put it on YouTube, you can turn it into a blog article, website article, turn it into social content. But I think the main thing is that like video can hold someone's attention. It increases that dwell time on a site or other channels. So back over to you, Emily and Tucker. I'm curious to hear like why. I just routed off like a bunch of reasons why YouTube is the right channel to like invest in and content create. I think people get nervous. It does take a lot of effort to create video content, not gonna lie. But curious like what you two think and how companies can start investing in video content if they haven't already, or what they really should consider if they already started.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think to start off, the other day I read a really interesting psychology report by Frontiers in Psychology, where they conducted a study that showed that short form video in particular does a really great job of not only engaging your audience, but kind of inciting like an emotional response from customers, which I feel like is really interesting, but also it makes sense. And I feel like video is a really great way to captivate people rather than just having them read a blog post. And because of this, with the use of video, you can really hold people's attention for longer, especially, let's say you embed a video in a blog post. That video might be the reason why it's called like dwell time, but the reason why they stay on that blog post for longer, which can help boost your rankings in Google's eyes. So like Janet said, we dive into a lot of this in a previous Call to Action episode, but we kind of figured it would be helpful to just like recap why video is so important. But yeah, in addition to kind of, increasing dwell time, which is a pretty significant factor in Google's eyes for ranking a piece of content, marketers have a really great opportunity to engage their customers in different ways with different types of video. So, product demos, explainer videos, webinars, interviews, and like there's so many opportunities that video can provide. And really with the right kind of like SEO optimization tactics, you can really help boost your video in terms of ranking on Google, and help get back maybe some of that traffic that you're losing due to an AI overview search. So if you wouldn't mind pulling up, Janet, there's a chart by Wise Owl, and you can see that the percentage of marketers who report video marketing contributing to an increase in website traffic has jumped from 55% in 2015 to 86% in 2024, which is a massive jump. And so you can see that a lot of marketers do, kind of vouch for the fact that video marketing is contributing to a rise in their website traffic. So when you're thinking about, what are some ways where I can kind of, go to battle with AI overviews, video is a great way to kind of maybe, like I said, get back some of that traffic that you might be missing out on due to AI overviews. So yeah, super interesting. Cool. And I love, Tucker, I feel like we do a lot of, video development for a lot of our clients. And part of, the tactics that we use is developing video chapters to kind of like break up the segments of a video and help out with that SEO optimization factor. Would you mind kind of like walking us through one of the examples that we've done for a client?
Absolutely. Yeah. And you said so many great things there, Emily. I'll try to weave back to them. But I think if we think about the goal of this conversation and where SEO is headed, I want to think about it kind of in two ways. One is bringing video to SEO, and then the other is bringing SEO to video. So I want to walk through both of those things. Sounds a little repetitive, redundant, but there's some really key differences. So let's talk about how do we bring video to SEO and touch on some of the things you just talked about. So if we go back to this example we were looking at that you were showing earlier, Emily, where we're looking at what is CIEM. And you already pointed out, you talked about the AI overview and how, sure, a portion of this audience is just going to get their answer and move on. But another portion of this audience that wants a richer, deeper explanation is going to click in. And I love that comparison you made of these essentially being the kind of next new stage of featured snippets, right? So people are still going to click in to the links that are right at the top. Now, what's over on the right? The very first one is an article called What is Cloud Infrastructure Entitlement Management? CIEM. You can see why they need articles for this stuff.
It's a mouthful.
Right, exactly. So that's right at the top. That's an article from Prisma Cloud / Palo Alto Networks that Aimtel helped craft. Now, why is that the number one article? Well, if we're to click in there, you will see that in this article, there is a video embedded. And this is also a video that we helped Prisma Cloud create. But this video is essentially enriching the article because it's a explain it to me like I'm 5 about what is cloud infrastructure entitlement management, getting into the nitty gritty of what it is, delivering really quality content. We know Google likes this. We know AI overviews like this. It's giving the audience a deeper, richer experience when they click into an article. You're not just getting text.
And
you're not
people
just
like it too. I think that's like the other part of it is like people, it's not just about the technology, it's like created for the person. Like that's you're scrolling through and you're like, all right, I've read a lot, and then you hit the video, you're like, oh, cool, I can watch this in 5 minutes. Great.
That's a great point. Yeah, Google and AI like this because people like it, because it actually is the intent of what people are really trying to understand. So by adding video into your SEO strategy, by adding it into your articles, you're essentially increasing the chances that, you know, on the one hand, you're going to show up higher on these AI overviews. You're also just increasing the chance that potential buyers are going to find your article and ultimately visit your website, which is the whole goal of SEO in the first place. So that's why I think really bringing video into your SEO strategy is going to be key and is really key right now.
I think the other point is like, it doesn't always just have to be like an explainer video. What you were saying, Emily, is like, it can be a range of videos too, product demos, how-tos, webinars, interviews. Like this doesn't have to just be one type. We see all of them effective. So like, it's really kind of like, you can figure out which video works for your brand, company, like campaigns as well. I think is important. Like it's just pretty much like just do it.
Yeah, and that's one of like the positive outcomes I think of AI, right? Is that it's a little more sophisticated in picking up on intent rather than like, what keywords did you stuff at the top of the article? It like can pull out of a webinar or like you said, a product demo and say, oh, this is really good content. We should surface this. So I think that's just
so what you're saying. Yeah, what you're saying is like it doesn't always have to be so on the nose of the exact short or long tail keyword.
Right.
It can be kind of or like almost like the universe around that more so.
Exactly. Now, having said that, as we talk about how you can apply SEO to video, item number 2, I am going to show you a bit more of an on-the-nose example, but I think that is important because when we think about, okay, where is SEO going? How do we apply SEO to video? This is a pretty good example of that. So if we Google that same question, we're just going to talk about cloud infrastructure entitlement management this whole day. If you Google that and then you look in the video tab of Google, what pops up? It's the same result. Voila. So why is that? The reason for that is because we went ahead and applied SEO best practices to this video. So on the one hand, that means, as we're talking about, creating really rich quality content, of course, but also there's some really technical things that we did. And you mentioned this earlier, Emily, of looking at chapters and chapter titles and using an SEO strategy for those chapter titles. So you can see Google didn't just pull up the video, it pulled up different key moments in the video, which are actual chapter titles that we added into this video. That's YouTube optimization right there. You know, what are CIEM solutions? What are the functions of CIEM? What are the benefits? And as a result, now all of that is getting surfaced into Google. And as you said earlier, Janet, YouTube is basically the number 2 biggest search engine in the world. So we can't just treat YouTube and treat videos as pieces of content. We also have to start thinking about them as things people are searching for and approach them from a search optimization capacity.
Well, I also like this example too, because it's like you're setting it up so that whichever way someone discovers it, they're finding the other. So if you're going to the video first, you can then drive forward into the article, into the website, or vice versa. If you find the video first, you can or you find the article first and then you see the video. So it's like very much connecting them and integrating all this content together is very important, because it also shows just kind of like the depth and breadth of what your company or the thought leaders in your company know about these topics.
Integrated approach. It works. I love it. And before we move on, Emily, you know even more about like the nitty gritty, I think, of YouTube channel optimization than I do. So I'd love to pass it to you for a second. Can you just share a little bit more about, when we get into the weeds, what are some things people should consider when it comes to optimizing for YouTube and optimizing their videos for search?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I feel like there's a few just kind of like basic best practices you can do that don't take a ton of effort, but really help, improve your video's SEO rankings. So having an optimized title is really important. So, having it be about the topic that you're talking about, maybe a little bit descriptive. If you have something like a really branded series, that's great. But I would maybe, if it's titled something like a little bit obscure, make sure to also include some more descriptive keywords in there to make sure that you're hitting on the actual topic that you're talking about in the video.
I guess,
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, Emily, but just further to that point, because we still have this example pulled up,
Yeah.
I think those descriptions and those keywords, that's
Yes.
also getting pulled in right here. Like that's basically the subhead here that we're looking at, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So optimizing a video description does kind of act as that subheader that shows up in Google. And that can be another way that you can improve SEO, is writing a thorough description. I know that video does take a bit of, effort to develop, but if you can spend the extra like 10 minutes to write a really descriptive description, that can really go a long way. So not only that, but tags are another way that you can add in some quick keywords that allows Google and YouTube to understand what your video is about. And then I feel like the biggest one that we've seen really make a difference is our transcripts. So actually including a transcript of the talking points and the voiceovers of your video, and including that when you upload it to YouTube, can really make a huge difference. Because if you think about it, if you record even like a 30-minute long interview, kind of like what we're doing now, think about how many words we've spoken during however long, the 41 minutes that, the three of us have been talking. That is a wealth of topic information that for Google's eyes, like going back to what you were saying about intent, Google is getting better at understanding the intent behind content. So including a transcript with all of the amazing things that your speakers or whoever is talking about can be really, really useful. And then other things like backlinks, cross promotion, like Janet was saying, integrating your video marketing across different platforms and channels. And shameless plug, I will say Aimtel has a really great YouTube optimization guide on our website that dives into all of this in much greater detail. So if you are looking to really kind of like bolster your YouTube SEO best practices, I definitely recommend looking at that.
Yeah. And the final point that we could talk through too, I think, is like overall we're saying is like you want to be as visible as possible. And then that example we showed for our client, Prism Cloud, it's actually like a whole series. So we just took a clip of the playlist here, but this is really important, is like not just kind of maybe doing like one-off things, but really starting to build around a whole series of videos. Will help with people tailoring those titles, that right audience, targeting that audience, giving them what they're like looking for in a range of kind of similar topic areas, but kind of going deep. As you can see here, there's what is CIEM, but there's a range of cloud security topics that they cover in this episode. Anything else you would add on to that part of it too, like kind of that fuller pictures you were touching on?
Yeah, I think just really kind of hitting it home that in order to make sure your videos are visible to your audience, you do have to kind of go the extra step to make them SEO optimized. And that's kind of the goal, right? Is you want your content to be visible. So yeah, any way that you can do that, I think really improve your performance, especially in kind of the age of AI.
For sure. Okay, so we started to touch on, like, we talked about the what, the how, and we're touching on, like, here and there, like, the who. And I think let's definitely, like, go kind of round out of, like, who is this content for? We really wouldn't be good marketers if we weren't pretty much hyper focused on the audience that we're trying to, like, attract, educate, entertain. And really, when it comes down to it, I think we all say this, but it's just so true. Like, don't create content just for Google. Like, it's just not, it hasn't been the way to do it. And it's not, I think we can always figure out, we shared some tips. Obviously, there are definitely ways that you can optimize your content for SEO and for it to, like, rank and show up. But at the end of the day, like, it really truly is going to be about, like, what you create for the people, not just the search engine. Let's kind of, I think I'm curious to kind of, like, get a little bit, just kind of round out this episode of talking about, like, the audience and, like, where they are, and kind of coming back to what I shared is, like, there are specific channels. And when I think of it, it's like, we need to create the content where that audience is consuming it. Right. So we're talking a lot about YouTube and LinkedIn. If you're listening to this episode, like, I don't know if YouTube and LinkedIn is exactly, like, the right channel for you. If you're in B2B, it probably is. But so let's kind of touch on this if you want to kind of take us into this part of the other part of the jigsaw puzzle, Tucker, of just, how you create the content for your audience, and, like, how you kind of, what that looks like with the kind of Gen AI and this whole zero-click concept.
Yeah. So zero click, right? And we got to give a shout out to Amanda Natividad at SparkToro, who coined that phrase, zero click content. I think I saw on LinkedIn the other day, in her profile, it says, I said zero click content first. So
she also said it back in, I, like, looked at her original article, and it was July of 2022. So, like, rewind, as I just said, like, generative AI came out to the public in November 2022. So, like, they were already seeing these trends before Gen AI even came out, which is mind-blowing.
Absolutely. So, and I want to go back to what you shared earlier, Janet, about what are the top places that these AI overviews are pulling from to create their own overviews? LinkedIn and YouTube. So what that tells me, one, right away, that's where really important conversations are happening on those channels, right? That's one. But I think number two is when we think about just awareness and driving awareness for a product, for a service, there's a really big shift in what's happening. Traditionally, I think people were using channels like LinkedIn and YouTube as mechanisms to drive traffic to their website. And they're like, if we get people to our website, that's a win. That's great. That is not the case.
Which is, like, makes obviously, right? But
right. I mean, that's
not, that's what everyone wants, but it's just not, like, it's just not how it works really anymore, unfortunately.
If you can get it, great. And it still should be part of the strategy. But the reality is, as you're saying, is that these channels like LinkedIn and YouTube are often the end state of where the conversations and the research about your product and about your services are happening. So if you're still thinking, oh, I've got to always use these channels just to get people to my website, as opposed to these are on these channels is where I need to have this conversation. You got to rethink that. You got to find a way to maximize engagement on those channels itself as well. And I think that's a really key change that we're seeing happening right now.
Yeah. So this graphic I just pulled up kind of just emphasizes what you're explaining, Tucker, is that, like, the platforms, especially Google, like, they want you to stay on Google. They, like, LinkedIn wants you, like, they make money because you stay on the platform and, like, you don't go off to, like, other sites. So, like, there really is there's not a ton of incentive for them to be driving you off the feed, really, at the end of the day. So I think this is there's a lot in here, but it's like, so zero click content on major web platforms. So as you were saying, Tucker, it's like, there's all these platforms, they will allow you to, like, use links. You can put links in anything and drive people to, like, other places and promotion. But what Amanda mapped out on this at SparkToro is, like, you're going to benefit from a zero click approach pretty much on everything besides Pinterest and Quora, because those ones they don't, like, the algorithm doesn't pretty much, like, downgrade your performance if you're driving people off of their platform. That's, like, the kind of point of it. But, like, what we're talking about, Google, YouTube, LinkedIn, they allow content to be like to go out to other places, but it's really going to, you're not going to be seen, not going to be as visible if your every single post is like driving to your own website or somewhere else. I mean, I see that all the time with like even just my own personal content. The ones that don't have links on LinkedIn now are my top performing posts. And a lot of people are on LinkedIn are talking about it and kind of like sharing this forward and showing their own analytics of like, when I didn't include like a article or a link or something, or they put it in the comments. But even it's actually kind of fascinating because even putting things in the comments now isn't as effective. So kind of a little, it gets me, I'm not gonna lie, I get a little nervous about this stuff. But it's also, I think that's the whole point though, is that like, instead of just trying to like do what has always worked, you gotta change how you've approached it, and you gotta really optimize, create the content for that channel specifically. Cool. So the other thing, just to like drive this a little bit further, we can take it back to SEO Google, but I'll pull up another one that I found from Ahrefs. SparkToro shared this, one of their articles, so shout out to them because I found this through them. But just kind of wrap up what we were saying is that like 96% of web pages get zero traffic from Google. Like that's insane. That's a lot. Ahrefs did this study of 14 billion pages, which is a lot of data. So I think the point we're trying to make is that if you need to create content for where your audience is online, and then make that channel specific content and really kind of play the game of keeping people engaged on that channel instead of just trying to constantly drive them off of it. So I guess Emily, kind of circling back, bring us back a little bit of just like how people can kind of like think of this a little bit more holistically, like the content you're creating and what this kind of means at the highest level of like, especially when we're thinking in the context of AI overviews.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I feel like since we're talking about audiences now, I think something that marketers can do to ensure that they are creating content that speaks to the audience group that needs that more in-depth answer is just doing that, creating content that does go deeper, beneath the surface, and will kind of encourage people to click into those articles. So, a quick answer from AI won't be driving traffic, but more complex, useful articles will. And there's a really nice quote from Ben Steele, who is the managing editor at Search Engine Journal. So I'm just going to, read this quote really quickly because I feel like it really summarizes and encapsulates everything that we're saying. So Ben says, drawing traffic to on-site content through search will become significantly more challenging. With generative AI-powered search platforms, content can easily be produced and readily served. If AI can write it, and AI can serve it to users instead of a link, kind of going back to that zero-click concept. Then he goes on to say, generative AI offers powerful efficiency tools, but I don't believe it's a wholesale answer to content marketing. And this is where I think he really hits it on the nose. I predict an increased demand for verifiably human content about deeper and more complex topics. And I feel like that last piece really summarizes everything that we're saying. And so in order to dive deep into the complex topics that your audience cares about, you really have to understand your audience, which kind of goes back to using tools like SparkToro and what you were mentioning, Janet, about, really understanding where your audience is behaving online, what they're talking about, what they care about. And
also like analyzing your own, like I think this is where like if you don't have access to like your CRM data or like your audience and like reporting and understanding like how people are like engaging with your own content when they come through, like that's a huge missed opportunity because you can just learn from your own CRM and all the activity going on from these people to try to figure out, okay, what are the gaps that we have of information to provide to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like it just is about becoming an expert on your audience so that you can then become an expert on the topics that they're searching for. And that will naturally lead to those more in-depth articles that will result in organic search traffic. So I feel like, marketers, there's a lot that we're trying to understand and consume as things are changing. But if you really just boil it down to one thing, it is to become really, really, really familiar with your audience and go from there and really understand what their challenges and needs are, and then go really in depth on those things so that you can get that traffic still and provide them with the actual answers that they need.
Excellent.
And there's also ways to kind of like diversify. Like it's not just blog content, you know, I feel like
Then there's a point we're trying to make too, is like, don't just think of it as like, oh, I want my articles to rank. It's like kind of like articles are almost like the minimum. It's like, how can you differentiate video and even social, like LinkedIn newsletters. We didn't even touch on this. I think we need to do an entire episode on it. I'm like so excited about LinkedIn newsletters. Anyways, but like those actually are starting to like rank in search engines and like helping with all of that, like visibility and awareness for a brand, which is insane, like, and really exciting, honestly.
Totally. Yeah. I feel like if you can diversify where your content lives and the different types of content you're producing, you are making your brand more visible. You have a higher chance of reaching. Right. So
for sure. Awesome. Well, we covered a ton. And I think we're pretty much, I'm like, we're just going to take our own advice and just get deeper and deeper into future episodes on these things. But thank you, Emily, for joining us. Emily's our senior content manager at Aimtel. Super excited to have you on the show to talk all things content marketing, SEO, and the evolution and future. And of course, Tucker, thank you as well for joining, be my co-host here. So as we always do, let's close it out with your final call to action to the audience based on today's topic. So we'll start with you, Emily. What's your one call to action to folks listening today?
Yeah, good question. I feel like if I had to boil it down to one, it would be, to expect a decrease in your organic traffic, but the way that you can kind of, battle that or overcome that is to develop content for those audience groups that require a more in-depth answer. So, when you're thinking about an AI overview, you can think about the content that might serve that, but you should also really be focusing on the content that, AI can't just pull a quick snippet from, that really goes more in depth beneath the surface and really helps your audience in a more kind of like complex way. So that would be mine. What about you, Tucker? Do you have a top one?
I think we were talking a lot about diversifying the channels where you're publishing content, right? So I think that's key. Obviously, I think investing in video marketing is really a huge piece of that. And then I would take that a step further by saying the next video you do, think about taking an SEO approach to that, and not just a great headline, but the stuff we talked about today. How are you using an SEO strategy for your chapters? How are you leveraging the transcript? How are you really taking a detailed SEO approach for your videos? That would be a big CTA for me. And what about you, Janet?
Oh, I feel like I was going with one, then I changed my mind. I think it would come down to creating, like, thinking of it also. What we were talking about before is like, where are the opportunities where someone can find that content? So not like, I think very much creating that channel specific strategy, and then any way that you can like interconnect that content. So I really love the example you provided, Tucker, of like, you have the article with the video embedded, but also the like video has like all the links to the articles. So any channel that your audience is actually like kind of showing up and trying to find and discover this content, they're able to kind of make that connection through to your company and more information that you're creating. And as you explained, Emily, you go deeper and deeper so they can start to find like the breadth and depth of that. So I think thinking of things when you're creating a channel specific strategy, I think that's a way to go, but don't think of it too much as of a silo. Still have that broader perspective and make that connection across everything.
Love it.
An old integrated approach.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, thank you, Emily. Thanks, Tucker. And thank you all for listening. So as I mentioned, we're Aimtel. This is Call to Action. Let us know in the comments online, whichever channel you're consuming this content, what's working for you. Like, what are you seeing with the impact of generative AI on your company, your website traffic, your ranking, anything that we're overlooking that we should be kind of taking a look at? We would love to know too. And yeah, we just love to hear it. Reach out to us directly. So definitely subscribe. We are sharing videos consistently. Always want to make sure we're kind of on the trend or ahead of the curve. So Let us know what you want us to research. If you have research, we can break it down and analyze it. So hit that subscribe. Never miss an episode, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Call to Action. Thanks, everyone.